That was good, Don. Thank
Good.
you.
Okay. Did that answer your question?
Yes. Oh, and I really like what you said. Well, why do you hunt Easter eggs? That was funny.
I stopped like all cracking up.
I just really blew a gasket on that one. That was great. That was good. Yeah, the timing was what I was interested in
Yeah.
regarding Touch Me Not. So apparently he went and presented himself before God as the high priest, as the
Sora!
ultimate high priest.
Yep. As the high priest, that was his first act of presenting himself as the first fruits, the first person up from the dead.
Okay,
And
because it was about 10 years I taught on this, and I said that, um, but I was kind of shaky because I still needed to do a little more research to be sure, but I said it, and I actually taught on Pentecost on that one. It's about 10 years ago, and uh, because being a high priest, the high priest was not to be touched, otherwise he'd have to go get re-cleansed and everything
yeah,
else,
yeah,
according to the Levitical law, and
yeah,
that was really an interesting event because Jesus himself, when you realize these things, he was the ultimate high priest and presented himself as the ultimate sacrifice.
yeah,
Sometimes this word of God, it
yeah,
just sends chills, get goosebumps thinking
yeah,
about it
yeah,
sometimes, you
yeah,
know. I mean, that was when I first saw that was just thrilling to think about it.
yeah. Yeah, the wave offering part of this Easter season, if you want to call it that, it's really Passover, but the that wave offering gets overlooked. A lot of people don't have no clue that there even is such a thing. So he was still fulfilling the law in a way, but in a way he was replacing what the law did by having a wave offering and replacing that offering. It was a first fruits offering, and he was replacing the wave offering, which was from the ground, excuse me, with himself, who came up from the ground. It's just
As the first fruits,
as
yeah.
the first
That
fruits
all
from the
fits
ground.
together, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
No one person could have ever dreamed up all of this.
No, no way. There's no way. And like we learned in the One Day with the Creator class, the Bible is the only book on the planet that makes the claims that it makes and then proves them. And the things that we learn in the Bible is there's like you said, there's just no way anybody could dream all this up. There's no way.
Yeah, and this plan of redemption is so detailed.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, all of these details just get fulfilled, and when you read things like that, it's thrilling. It's, you know, you go back and you read some of this Levitical law. I mean, I've tried to. It is so detailed
Yeah.
that and all of it uh, was is related to the Messiah one way or another.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all the old the entire Old Testament was his textbook on how he should live and who he was and what was it in the One Day with the Creator class. John says that the Old Testament reveals who he is, what he was supposed to do because of who he is, and what he would receive if he did what he was supposed to do because of who he is. I mean, I had to listen to that quite a few times to really get it. And then I wrote it down, and I read it slowly a few times. Finally got it. It's, it's really cool. But this is my
John, you're
favorite.
doing a great job at making a presentation there. I really like that.
I think it's pretty fun too. I didn't know whether or not Don caught it. I came in late, so I didn't know if Don, since Don was already screen sharing, I didn't know if he saw me do it. But yeah, I'm playing around with it. Did you see me do the thing when he was reading the Bible and stuff?
No, I didn't.
I had it up then too, but yeah, right now I actually just have it on the YouTube. Like, this is what everybody else is seeing, is what's on the YouTube side. So
Yep.
that's what everybody else is watching right now, and so yeah, it's pretty fun.
Cool.
This is interesting. I don't know. There's no significance to it really. It's just fun.
Yeah. We sounded like we were in an echo chamber there for a while.
I know. I was trying to show my face, I guess. I was trying to like be somewhat more like less behind the scenes, I guess. But
Yeah.
well, my
no big deal.
phone does not work that way. It's
It was a nice, fun interruption.
thanks.
I'm gonna have to go. I gotta go do medication for Mom. Actually, I could probably bring you guys in there with me while I do that, but you probably don't want to see all that.
Hey,
You
you
can
just,
always turn your camera off, but
No.
but doesn't matter.
I'm gonna leave you running. I'm gonna turn my camera off, but I'm gonna leave you running. I may finish about the time before you guys quit.
okay.
So I'll be back in a few minutes.
Alrighty.
So yeah, and I'm sorry, Dawn. From what I heard, I loved it. It's just so crazy. It's so crazy. So I was like, as you heard, unfortunately, I didn't mute myself, but I had to yell at them to close the door, and I mean, just it's been Wild House here, so haven't really I didn't get to hear much. Boo-hoo. At least I get to get on and hop on and hear you read some of the word, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I get to no matter what I can get out of it, I'll get something out of it, even if it's just a scripture or two.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna get it. But as usual though, I always love your facial expressions, and every time you say something funny, I want to let you know that I am laughing with you.
Yeah.
I feel so bad when you laugh. I'm like, man, now the Kodak moment is gone. I can't necessarily like unmute myself so that he can hear me laughing with him, but
Yeah.
I don't want you thinking that nobody's laughing with you. So I am laughing with you when you say funny stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So you are not alone.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Good to laugh once in a while, a little bit. Try to make it, break it up a little bit, and make it interesting.
I enjoy that a
Yeah.
lot. I enjoy that
I
very
know
much.
John does that really well. He's a good one to try to emulate.
Well, he has his own style though. Like John Lynn
That's
has
true.
his style, and you, Donald Culp, you have your style. And I mean, I think they're both they're both wonderfully wonderful.
Well, thank you.
So.
But that's the first time I've taught the women on Sunday morning. That's the first time I've taught it. I've studied it and read it and worked it, and that's the first time I've taught it. I probably
Yeah, it's
would
complicated.
I probably would not have taught it had Alan not said he had that question. I probably would not have taught it. But I'm glad he did because I got to teach it. Hopefully it made some sense. I know John Schoenheit did an article and did some study on it also. and I think he's come up with the same thing. I don't know if it's exactly the same, but I think it is. There's a lot of people who have the Matthew part, the Matthew 28:1, where the two women go to the tomb on Saturday as it's dawning towards the first day of the week. Some people still think that that means it's dawning towards Sunday morning. But if that's the case, then it contradicts John 20, where Mary Magdalene goes to the tomb early while it's still dark, and the guards are gone, the stone's gone, and Jesus is gone. So none of that would be true if 28:1 was referring to sunrise.
I can't remember. Was what you were saying about the women? I can't remember if you know how like you jumped from you would jump from Luke to Matthew and then Matthew to Luke. Make sure it was in chronological order. Mm-hmm. I can't remember. Do they do that in One Day with the Creator?
No, they don't do that in One Day with the Creator. They don't spell it out. Now, he does talk about how the women and the spices, when they prepared them before and after, he does talk about that, but he doesn't talk about Mary being the first person to see Jesus alive or anything thereafter.
Okay, so this would be a very great addition to that segment. Like as an additional...
Yeah, it's kind of like taking that segment and then digging into it a little bit more.
Yeah.
That'd be one way of looking at it.
Because that's a foundational class, so that kind of just gets the toes wet, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Gets the toes wet, and so then the teaching you did today was more detailed, more defined, and you put it in. You said chronological order.
Yeah. Yep.
So there you go. So as I watch that segment again, I'll definitely know to follow up with this teaching right here. So, because I mean, for me, I just don't do very well when I'm distracted. You know what I mean? So I have to really hone in and I need to listen. You can tell when I get the chance to listen more than other times, because obviously I have a lot more to say. Yeah. I don't feel I can always come up with something to say no matter what, but I just feel like I don't have a right to say something, I guess, if I didn't get to listen as much. But yeah.
Now you can do that. We do that with the birth of Christ also, where we try to put everything in chronological order, because it's not in chronological order in the Bible. You have to start with Luke, and then you go to Matthew, and you bounce around, and that's how you put it together. So,
there needs to be is there a chart on that?
On the new birth?
Yeah. Or
I don't know if there's a chart on that or not. I know we have. I have the list of all the scriptures that are in chronological order written down for the birth, and how it takes you a little while to read all of it, but you start it in Luke 1, and then you just go all the way until he's age 12. It's really cool. We can give you this. I think they're in that book.
Well, you know how
Jesus Christ, Our Promised Seed. It's in that book.
Well, when you're, for more visual people like me, I always like to see the chart timeline, and if I see a chart timeline, and then in each little spot there's a scripture to say it. I don't know. It just kind of walks me through as far as okay, this is what time it is. and this is what scripture I'm reading at this time to know what was happening at this time. I don't know, it just kind of sinks into my brain more if I see it visually on a chart.
Yeah. I tried to do that with the first part, the first segment. Put up a chart that I made that is a little different than any of the other charts that I've seen. I don't know if you saw it or not, but it's a chart of the scenario where you have to have a Passover, or not a Passover, a Sabbath day followed by a non-Sabbath day followed by another Sabbath day. That's the only scenario where the Gospels will fit. Otherwise, you have to throw one out. Either Luke is wrong or Mark is wrong. You have to pick one. One says they bought their spices after a Sabbath day, and the other one says they prepared them and then rested on a Sabbath day. Well,
yeah,
you can't have it both ways unless there's more than one Sabbath day.
right.
It just doesn't work. It's not possible. Now, I've heard some people say, well, you know, they went and bought the stuff after the Sabbath day. They went and bought it. Well, there's no way they could have bought it, prepared it in an hour, and cleaned their house. They've been cleaning their house. When you get ready for these special Sabbath days like Passover, Pentecost, all these,
Yeah.
it's a big deal. They spend weeks. I know I've read where the preparation, it says the preparation day, but the preparation day is kind of 2 weeks long. They start the first day of Nisan, and they prepare their houses themselves mentally, their neighborhoods. They clean everything. It's like spring cleaning. They clean everything up. They repair the streets because people are coming to town in Jerusalem. Everybody has to be there. All the males have to be. It was required that they attend the feasts, 3 feasts: Passover, Pentecost, and I don't know, the one in the fall, Tabernacles, or I think is what it's called. I'm not sure. But those 3 feasts, it was required that you be in Jerusalem. That's a lot of people. And a lot of preparation was involved, and a lot of homes, your homes were all, had to be clean, and no leaven was allowed in your house that whole week, Feast of Unleavened Bread. So for them to go and buy, first of all, nobody's going to have their market open because they're all getting ready for Passover. Even in our culture, when Christmas comes, stores close early. They got things to do.
Yeah.
You know, and you'll have some people go last minute shopping, but there might be a store open. But back then, no way. The market's probably closed at noon on Passover because when they kept the Passover, what that meant was, it says they kept the Passover in the evening. Well, it really reads between the evenings, and there were 2 evenings. The first evening was when the sun noticeably started to descend in the sky. So at noon you'd look up, and it's not evening. About 1 o'clock you'd say, oh, it looks like it's starting to go down now. It's past the noon part, and it's now starting at about 1:30 or 2. You can really tell, yep, it's starting to go down. So that would be the early evening. And then about 4 or 5 o'clock, just before sundown and before dusk or all that, you'd have the evening. And the lambs were always sacrificed between the evenings, which was about 3 o'clock. So between 1 and 5 or 2 and 4, about 3 o'clock. That's when they sacrificed the lambs, and that's when Jesus died, which is remarkable also, that he died at the exact same time that all the other were being sacrificed. So,
and it says he's our Passover lamb. So for him to be that, he had to be sacrificed between 3 and 6 on Wednesday afternoon.
Mm-hmm. So some people say that the Passover was on the 14th. Other people say it was the 15th. But when they kept the Passover, that's when they sacrificed the lambs. So that was always done on the afternoon of the 14th.
Right.
And then they would prepare the lamb to be eaten. And then after sundown began the feast, the 7-day long feast of unleavened bread. And Passover was the first meal of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and it was eaten after sundown. That's how I understand it. A lot of people disagree that I talk to, but most of the people that think like we think agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, you know, like if you go in the chat rooms and stuff, you hear all kinds of stuff.
What you were saying about how they had to clean and how long it took. You may remember, as Jesus Christ was being called out to Golgotha, they had to grab Simon of Cyrene and have him carry the cross. He was never going to have enough time to cleanse himself so he could celebrate the Passover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that would have ruined his whole week.
Yeah. Sandra, do you know you're still screen sharing?
Yeah. I just didn't want you guys to see me how tired I am.
Oh, okay.
But I want to see Chandra.
I look so achy. Okay, whatever. Well, I've been like, let me put my hair up in a bun.
Who cares? We just want to see Chandra.
Man, I wanted to look like a bum tonight. What's up? Let me
just put up that pretty picture of you.
No, I don't want. I know you're gonna take a picture.
You get some.
No, but the picture you have.
Sunglasses.
What?
Put on some big
picture. Your avatar picture.
Oh.
Yeah,
that
that's
one.
a really good.
There you go.
Right there. Yeah, there we go.
We're easy.
Yeah, there you go.
When you talk, I can go to you, and it doesn't look like it's, a Facebook page.
Well, I put it on there for a reason. Like, it was, because it was on the Monday night one. Every Monday, 9 p.m.
Right.
It was like it was an advertisement for, like, while we're having our fellowship, if people are watching it, they could see a sign. Like, oh, it's every Monday. Anyways. Yeah, you guys can just remember me like this, okay? Like.
Until Thursday.
Until Thursday. Oh, what am I doing? So, yeah, I quickly did that thing with Robert. Did you guys see that one? Did you guys see the video I posted of Robert Wasson for this Wednesday?
Uh-uh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I haven't been on a computer for a while, so just like hit and miss.
Don and Alan, have you seen it?
Have I seen it? No.
Oh, okay. Well, I posted it. On the page.
You see this
I saw
Wednesday?
something had been posted, but I didn't look at it yet.
That's this Wednesday, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really quick. Like he he would message me, and it was like weeks ago that we were supposed to record something. Before it was supposed to be for this Wednesday, and so just yesterday or the other day or whatever, he's like, hey, I know I'm a little late. So, because I'm like, you don't even know, I need time to edit. Like, so, tentatively, I told him I want at least, it would be nice if if we had a couple of weeks to, invite people and get people looking forward to the subject, or get people to think about some questions beforehand or something like that. And so, but just for the time being though, because he hadn't been on the Google Plus Hangout on air before, so I figured it was very spontaneous when he met, I was like, okay, well, we can record it now or, like tomorrow or something. So it was just right there on the spot recorded, and I slapped some music on there, and yeah, so it was pretty fun though. You know how I am when I do the video directing.
It's probably a masterpiece.
It was so quick. I just wanted to get it up there as quickly as possible, because it's this Wednesday, right? I didn't want to have him go through all that bossiness and takes for nothing. Like, I wanted to at least get it up there so we could share it for at least a few days. So, because otherwise, it's kind of a shame to go through all that work of recording and editing and uploading and adding the description and all that, only for it to be up for like one day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's only fair to, post it as soon as possible. And Robert's wanting the video to possibly be in the mid-month blast. Yeah, for future reference. So video previews of Research Night.
Cool.
Yeah, so he seemed really excited about it. Actually, it was cool. It was funny too because when I told him to speed up, when I told him to like talk faster, the first time he recorded, it took like a minute, and I said, "Oh, okay, cool, that's a minute." He thought I was saying, "Oh, that's only a minute, right? It needs to be longer." And so the second time when he did go longer, I was requesting him, when I requested for him to kind of like talk faster, he goes, "Oh, I can make it shorter. I thought you wanted me to be longer." It's like, no, the shorter the better. Like, if you can make it like 30 seconds, that would be good.
It's be like those ladies on the weather on local TV news. Man, they talk so fast, like a buzzsaw. Man. What did she say? I don't know. She's gone already.
Oh, hey, you made me want to watch when you guys were talking about, how they could tell time. You were saying something like, oh, it's midday, it's about 1 o'clock, or
oh yeah,
does. When you guys were talking about that, I was that makes me want to watch Galavant. It's like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen that. It was a really short comedy series. I don't know, was it on Fox or ABC? I can't even remember, but it's like a musical.
It's on Hulu if you have Hulu.
oh, is it?
Yeah, or on, I don't know. Do you have Comcast? Nobody has Comcast around here. 'Cause it's on demand. I watch it on demand, so.
Yeah, we've been tossing around the idea of cutting the cord. Just keep the internet, get rid of cable TV, and
Yeah.
do all the other stuff. Because we hardly ever watch anything but sports, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you can rent movies or watch them on, Hulu or Netflix or a whole bunch of stuff out there.
Right. I think we keep it around for well, gee, I think now we're trapped. Comcast did its job. I think they've trapped us because
Yeah.
now we've bought enough movies on Comcast that if we disconnected it, it's like we're getting
Oh
rid of
God.
all those digital movies that we bought.
Yeah. Have
So
you
it's
seen them all?
kind of like, well, yeah,
Well, you haven't lost anything then.
Yeah.
well, it's
That's
like,
why the
huh?
digital stuff I'm buying it on Amazon Prime, because
Yeah.
then it's on Amazon Prime and it's there no matter what you're doing. So that if I go to another computer, I could bring it up and watch it.
Yeah. Well, that's the same like with Netflix, right? You know, and Hulu and stuff. But
Mhm.
and I know Comcast has a thing where you can watch it on any device, but I just never, got into that or anything. But
Mhm.
but anyways, yeah, Galavant was it's like a comedy musical type thing from back in that time period, and they have little funny musical jingles or so here and there, and and just a part of the movie was like, like they said a really complicated sentence of like past this and past the noon and past the dark and past this, or like they said a really long complicated sentence, and then the other person goes, oh, so about 9 o'clock. And yeah,
Yeah.
fine, 9 o'clock. And
Yeah.
they said it like a few times throughout this one episode, and why does everybody keep saying that? Just say 9 o'clock.
Mhm.
So you talking about that made me want to watch that episode again,
Yeah. Yeah.
because that's how they told time apparently.
Yeah.
Sort of like the Bible, not everything is necessarily in chronological order.
Yeah.
It's like the book of Job should actually be in about the middle of Genesis,
Yeah, that's craziness.
Mhm.
and like the book of Ezra and Nehemiah should actually be down just before Malachi.
Mhm.
So the Bible in the order that it is, as much as I keep hearing how it's, men that puts a big giant 2 there or a big giant this there, it's like, okay, so if men screwed it up enough as they have already with the chapters, the chapter breaks, was it men that screwed it up also with the chronological order of the books, I think, or what?
No, I
I
don't
have
think
a little
so.
Probably.
bit. I have just a little bit to say about that because I spent years and years complaining about our translators. The chapters and verses, they just, was arbitrary, and then they just prepositions would just, and the way they divided the Old Testament and the New Testament, I used to gripe and complain and whine because why did the translators do that? And then I began to study uh, about some of those who and what they were up against when they were having to translate the Bible into the common language, and they were met with some tremendous amount of opposition, and the urgency of that time to get it translated. They didn't. They just did. They did what they could with what they knew, with what they had, and it was urgent to get this Bible out to the common people. And to think about it, what they had to go through, and what we have today, thinking about it, the church epistles and the New Testament just barely survived the Dark Ages, and
Mhm.
just barely.
Yeah.
And to think about what we have today in our day and time compared to what they had then, we have all of the tools for research to recover some of the truths that were lost during
Yeah.
the Dark Age period.
Mhm.
And I over time, become a whole lot more thankful. And God worked with those guys to get that Bible out to the common people. And it's still taking work even to this day to recover a lot of these truths, and so I'm tremendously less whining and complaining about our translators now when I realized because back in shortly after first 3 centuries of first several hundred years, the Christians were sorely persecuted. They were taken and tortured and beaten and crucified and burned at the stake and all kinds of stuff like that. So we're lucky to even have a Bible today, because they were severely persecuted, and so it's just anyway, it was like 1,500 years before they started taking and translating the Bible into the common language.
That's about the same time that Gutenberg invented the printing press. How convenient! Little God working in people there at that same time.
So what are you trying to say? Are you trying to Gutenberg was you trying to say he did it for the Bible, or?
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting that it happened at the exact time that the Bible was being translated, and I am absolutely convinced God had His hand in getting that printing press assembled. I'm convinced of it.
Isn't there a Gutenberg Bible? I think there might be.
Oh yes, the first book he printed was the Bible.
There you go.
And that was in 1495. That's about the time King Henry VIII was around.
I was thinking it was in the early 1500s, but that's close.
Yeah, it's someplace in there.
It's right around in there. We're in the same ballpark.
Yeah, because finally they had a printed Bible available, and that's one of the things King Henry VIII did to try and stick it to the Pope, was he had Bibles put in every church, which turned around and backfired on him, because then the Puritans came around and they wanted to live the word like it said.
Yeah.
And they became pilgrims to move to the United States, and as they say, the rest is history.
Yeah.
Well, at least there are chronological study Bibles.
Yeah.
So so you guys never answered my question. You guys never answered my question, really, though. As far as
we got off the path there.
As far as whether or not you think men, the answer was kind of yes, at least as far as what I am hearing, was yes. Considering, yes, you can have an appreciation and compassion and understand why it got put together the way that it did, that kind of stuff. But, once there was, now, like I'm seeing here on ChristianBook.com, now they are making chronological study Bible, and this one's New King James Version chronological study Bible. And I'm curious. I'm wondering, I wonder why these are not more popular. Because, you would think it would help people understand a little bit more to have a chronological Bible instead of...
Well, not everybody is as crazy as us. I got at least 8 Bibles in my house. There's a lot of people who don't have that many.
Well, I know, but
one that sits and gathers dust.
Well, this would be, if anybody were to have just one Bible, what would you, wouldn't you recommend a chronological Bible for them? Because, really think about this. Because, yes, I know that we're so used to, our traditional regular Bible and how it's written right now. But, hello, aren't we the ones that are always telling people to not, stop being so stuck in your traditions, that doesn't mean it's the right way or whatever. So I mean, we're so used to our Bible the way that it is, but at the same time, there's so many teachings of you guys saying, oh, this is, this was put in the wrong place, this is in the wrong place, and let's jump here, and let's come back here, and let's come back. It's like, okay, you know what? Can we just get a chronological Bible? So, I mean, I think that would hack your teaching in half, really, because like half of your teaching is telling people, where this number is not supposed to be, and how many times we have to go back and forth. It's like, why not just chronological?
The other thing that you have to remember is, especially in the actual order of the books, you got to ask yourself, was it of divine design?
Right, that's one of my questions. That was my question earlier. Was it by divine design, or do you think it was the men that did it that way? Like, under their circumstances, under rushing or whatever, or by, bias. Was it bias? As far as how they Trinitarians will translate things biasly.
Well, I think they are grouped a certain way. I really don't know. I'm just kind of going by, but I know that isn't there, like, are they grouped by administrations? Does the Bible progress from administration to administration to administration through the Bible? Is that?
I don't know if it's by administration.
Isn't that what the chart? If you go by the chart, I think it's kind of grouped, sort of.
But the chart goes chronological.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So to me, it's like, why wouldn't you want to have a chronological Bible?
Well, I think there's a reason why we don't have a chronologically correct Bible. The first people who translated the Bible were mostly people who were running for their lives. You check into John Wycliffe and all these other people who did the first English translations of the Bible. Most of them got burned at the stake.
Yeah. Well,
and for years they were running. The only one who didn't get captured and killed was Martin Luther.
Yeah, but
I don't know the answer to your question, Chandra. I have to go ask somebody else. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, it's a
I know that we were taught that God has a purpose for everything He says, where He says it, when He says it, why He says it, how He says it, and to whom He says it. And we were all taught that. So if the books are in divine order, then...
So how would you go about finding... I mean, you guys already have an understanding as far as what kind of pressure they were under, type of thing. So, but then we're treading into the waters of the don't blame God type of thing. It's kind of like, is God torturing everybody just so that they'll be in a rush and do it in the way that they did it? It's just one of those mind-boggling questions for me.
Well, from that point of view, I think that we, in our day and time, have about 10% knowledge of the Scriptures based on, or compared to what they had when the Bible was written, or in the Old Testament. I mean, that was all they studied. I mean, they didn't study history. They studied the Torah and all that kind of. That's what they knew it, and that was their schooling. And today we teach. Who knows what they're teaching now? Anything but. They won't even let you teach any of this stuff in school anymore.
Right.
I'll send you a link to it's a appendix. It's actually the appendix 1 of Bullinger's Companion Bible, and it kind of gives you a structure of the Old Testament. There's Okay, how do I put it? Put it in a chat. Where's a chat? Chat. There it is. Chat.
Put your cursor right
I'm gonna
there.
send you this link here, and it kind of gives you an overview of the Old Testament.
Mhm.
New Testament takes a little bit more work because the order. There's no proof that the order of the books of the New Testament, including the Gospels, were the order that they were received, because they received the different texts. They came in different orders, except for the church epistles. They came in the same order, Romans through Thessalonians, in every critical Greek text. Now,
That's true.
some of
Yeah.
the other books were a little bit out of order, but in every critical Greek text, they always came in the same order. The church epistles always came in the same order. And they may be placed elsewhere, you know. I don't know. Haven't studied that one, but
Yeah.
now this Old Testament, the way the order of those books there, they that Old Testament was so preserved by scribes and so forth. The accuracy of all the texts were as about as accurate as they could possibly be in for our day and time, even being translated into English. But the order of all of the books, there was I don't know if they were assembled chronologically, but there is a purpose, a progressive purpose for each order of these books, and the only way to recognize that is this Old Testament from Genesis to Malachi was Jesus was required to learn this. It was to be his doctrine, and it was progressive, and it started with Genesis and so forth, and it built upon each one of them, and he had to learn this progressively from Genesis to Malachi. He had 30 years to do it in. Interesting to think about. That was his doctrine, that was his assignment, and that was
Yep.
the order in which he was to learn it. So that's another thing to think about when you're talking about the Old Testament. That was his doctrine. That was his assignment from God. That was his job description, so to speak. That was what he was supposed to learn and then put into practice. And I'm still up in the air about the length of Jesus' ministry, and I'm going to stay on 1 year until somebody proves me different. But he put that into practice for 1 whole year, that whole doctrine that he'd studied for 30 years.
Yep.
Well, I mean, so yeah, the Old Testament sounds like, divinely, put that, but it doesn't sound like you're saying anybody was rushed to throw that together. I don't hear any other complaints about that being put in the wrong order necessarily.
Oh, but it did almost get lost again when they got carried away to Babylon. We almost lost the Old Testament.
Yeah.
During that period of time. Now, I don't know the whole story about it. The Bible doesn't say everything, but they did say that the scrolls, when they came in and ransacked the temple, that they just destroyed everything. And I think it was Jeremiah came in and found the scrolls just laid around on the floor, and he opened it up and he read it, and he ate them. Is what thy words were found, and I did eat them, and thy word were unto me the joy and rejoicing of mine heart, because they just threw it on the ground. They picked all of the gold and all the diamonds and all of the treasure and everything else, but they took that word of God and just threw it on the ground like it was trash.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then 70 years later, when Ezra and Nehemiah, I don't remember whether it was Ezra or Nehemiah, found it again. They had a whole day, a whole week of celebration where all they did was they sat and read the word from morning till night for a whole week. because the word hadn't been heard in over 70 years.
Oh, wow. Wow.
That's amazing.
That is amazing.
Well, all I know is after I read the Bible the traditional way, I have found
There's actually not, the traditional way is not so terrible. I mean, maybe not complete chronological order, but so what?
well, no, but it'll be what I'm looking forward to is when I get to read chronological Bible, it'll be very interesting to me if more light bulbs go off.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
If you need to do that, do it. That helps to help put it all together. It doesn't hurt. That's called research.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You are searching. It's seeking God.
Mhm.
Seek ye
Well,
first the kingdom of God. It's
It'll be funny too, though, if I read it and go, I wish I would have read this one first.
Well, somebody had to rightly divide the scriptures and then put them back together again to make them into chronological order if they did it right. So you
Right.
can still check it when you're reading. You'll be able to compare scripture to scripture. Why did they say this and somebody else said that? Or you'll still be able to check that out. But I'm sure it's helpful for
Yeah, I
sure.
mean, it's not readily available. Chronological Bibles just aren't readily available everywhere. So it's not like, so it wouldn't be as easy for people to get together and read their chronological Bibles together,
Mhm.
unfortunately, because it's just not as, it's not out there as much. But
I
see,
think what happens is people get a hold of a chronological Bible and they still don't understand it. They still don't understand
Yeah.
what's
Well,
So
another thing is,
this
like, for
happened before
example,
that. I still don't get it.
for one, for example, there are 4 gospels, and there's harmonies all over the place. Very few of them are actually accurate, I'm sure, but
Mhm.
there is a central focus on each one of the gospels, and doing a harmony is fine to help piece together accuracy of the word, but each gospel has a specific message that it is trying to communicate. Well, Matthew, of course, presents Yahweh's king, and of course, Mark presents Yahweh's servant, and then Luke is Yahweh's the man, a human being, and of course, the Gospel of John presents Yahweh's the Son of God. And when you read those in that light, separate from having to do the harmonies and so, then you see that message that it's trying to convey.
Yep.
In fact, in Matthew this is interesting. If you guys don't mind me showing this to you, and this is something that I discovered from Bullinger, and you can see it in the Companion Bible in its structure of the book of Genesis. There are 11 generations in the book of Genesis, which would properly be rightly divided had the chapters had started with each one of these generations. The very first one is in the 2nd chapter. The second one is like 5th or 6th chapter of Genesis. And there's 11 of them all the way through the book of Genesis. And when you read those as if those were actually scrolls or books in each section, that book of Genesis begins to make more sense. Well, there's 11 of them in the book of Genesis. There's one in the book of Numbers. There's one in the book of Ruth, and then there's 14 total. The last one is in the book of Matthew, chapter 1, verse 1, where it says, "This is the book of the generation of Jesus Christ," which
Right.
ties that Old Testament, ties that book of Matthew into the Old Testament. And when you read the book of Matthew, you could go through there and see, "Thus it was fulfilled." I don't know how many times that phrase was used But I do remember there's like 63 different references to the Old Testament in the book of Matthew, which emphasizes that he was fulfilling prophecy all the way through the book of Matthew. And that's what the book of Matthew emphasized.
That
He
was
was, it was
lost.
like he had a list. Jesus had him a little list of tasks to do. Said, well, I got to do this one first. And marks it off, and he goes to the next one. Thus it was fulfilled. Then he goes to the next one, and that's the way the book of Matthew is presented. It's fascinating when you read through it.
The to-do list of Jesus.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's exactly what it was. It was his itinerary. That was his list of work orders.
Well, none of that would be. It's not like all of the stuff you guys are mentioning, like the gospel and all this good stuff. It's not like any of that would be lost in a chronological Bible. I mean, like, are you guys afraid that a chronological Bible would lose the message of the gospel? And it's like, no, the gospel's still going to be in there. It's just going to be in chronological order and less confusing. Like, I'm not going to have to jump around to like 1,000 different areas, and then I'm not going to need as many charts, to figure out what happened because it's all in chronological order. Hey, what if it's Satan trying to hold back this knowledge from us so that so that many people won't understand it as much? I don't know, because it's available now. It's available now in this day and age. It's there for us to grab and utilize. But, I mean, I guess Satan's doing a really good job at not, like, nobody really knows about it. Nobody cares.
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what the
Okay.
purposes of God was on some of this stuff. Like if go in, for example, if you go in the Old Testament, you have 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, and then you have 1st and 2nd Chronicles. Now they seem like they're covering the same thing, but they're written from two different points of view. One's man's point of view, and the other's God's point of view. The Chronicles is written from God's point of view. So when you are looking for, you read about, I don't know what, trying to think of an example in there, where it talks about the census that David took.
Yeah.
It sounds like two different things, but one is God's point of view. Like there were all these guys, and in man's point of view, there were all these guys, all these thousands and thousands of guys. And in God's point of view, he talks about valiant men, not just men. So those are two different points of view looking at the same thing. And sometimes God wants that there for a reason. What it is, ask him, not me.
Yeah, he talks about the King Saul too. He commits suicide in one book, and then in the other book he dies a different way or something.
Yeah, from God's point of view, he died because he went to a witch. I forgot what not a witch, but
The woman of Endor.
yeah, and God's reason for him dying was that, but you read from man's point of view, he committed suicide.
Yeah,
Yes.
there you go. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But you would still get that. But you would still get that in the chronological Bible.
Well, which one would come first, though?
That would be the interesting part.
Yeah.
Let me look in my chronological Bible and check. I don't know.
Would be interesting, yeah. Kings come first or Chronicles? Well, I don't know, Chronicles or Kings. I don't know.
Yeah, I would want to hear. I
And
want
it's the same way in the Gospels.
If you guys go to a library or a Barnes and Noble at some point, check out a chronological Bible. Like maybe you can take a few notes or something, and share them back in fellowship.
That's a good idea. That's a really good idea.
I'm curious.
Yes, I am too. I'll make a note of that.
Like, okay, so the main question is there anything divinely, do you think that there would be anything divinely lost if you were to prioritize the study of the chronological Bible versus the other Bible? Is there something?
Yes, I would have to say that, and that's dealing with the church epistles, because Thessalonians was written first, yet the foundation is the book of Romans. And and because the Thessalonians was written first, that revelation was available then. But there is a reason why God put those 7 church epistles in order. Because if you do what I did, you want to go jump in the ring with the devil, you're going to get your ass whooped because you haven't studied the book of Romans and got the foundation down. Now, I learned this just recently. You can't go into advanced areas of the doctrine that we're supposed to be learning and expect it to work if you got holes in your loins girt about with truth. If you got a bunch of holes in your loins, so to speak. If you've got some error mixed in with the truth there that you're supposed to be having. Anyway.
I don't get it. Can you please explain that? Okay, Romans would be the foundation, but like, okay, so what would be the problem with the chronological?
Okay, Romans needs to be learned first. And once Romans it's like riding a bicycle. Once you learn Romans, you get comfortable with it, you're living it every day, then you can progress on to the next doctrine, which is in Ephesians. But you can't skip over the reproof and correction, which is in 1st and 2nd Corinthians and Galatians, because it expands upon the doctrine in the book of Romans. And then once that's built upon, then you can go to the advanced areas, like I talked about, wanting to go step in the ring with the devil and slice off a piece of the dragon, so to speak. But in order to do that, this is interesting, and I've only recently noticed this. In the doctrine of the book of Romans, the devil is not mentioned at all. And I've searched. I cannot find it. Just vaguely mentioned once in Romans chapter 8, verse 38, I think it is. Principalities and powers. But other than that, in the doctrine of the book of Romans, the devil is not even mentioned. But you go over here to the Ephesians, it's talking about, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood. You know, it's making a stand against the devil. But it's not mentioned. That tells me that a knowledge of the devil is not required in order to put the doctrine of the book of Romans into practice. It's like, you know, if you're wanting to learn, if you're a child and you're just starting to learn to ride a bicycle, you don't want to put him on a motorcycle and try to get him to ride it down the street. It's, you know, it's a learning process, and it's progressive.
So if Romans needed to be in whatever position it needed to be in, what makes you think the chronological Bible wouldn't put it in that correct placement?
Thessalonians was written first, so chronologically Thessalonians would go first, which there's nothing wrong with that. Our hope is great.
It's not about being written first, though, because Matthew, I mean, just like Don was doing tonight, you know, Mark or Luke, I don't know which one was written first, but you know, Don was having to take us back and forth to make sure it was in chronological order.
There's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with studying a chronological Bible. It helps you to put things together.
Right.
But the only point that we are trying to make is what is it that is divinely well, I said it earlier, of divine design. There is a purpose for God placing the order in which things are presented. For example, the Old Testament, there's a purpose for that, and it's progressive. If you put Genesis back at the end of Malachi, you put Malachi first and you put Genesis last. Of course, this is an exaggerated example. It wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't fit.
Right.
But it is progressive. It's built one upon the next, so to speak.
But you even said yourself the New Testament was, you know, like kind of jumbled. Like,
Yeah, out of order, yeah. But now I can't account for the order of all of the other books in the New Testament. I can only account for the 7 church epistles being in the exact same order from every text, every critical Greek text, from Romans to Thessalonians. Every critical Greek text, they come in that exact same order. The other books in the New Testament, some of them are in different places. So there's no way that I know of, I'm sure somebody else probably could, be able to fit them together in the order that they're supposed to be. And
the Bible is not, there are a lot of things in the Bible that have nothing to do with chronology. They're principles, truths,
yeah.
these kind of things. So your chronological Bible could be a lot smaller.
Yeah.
When you think about it. Because, like, you can't put Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in chronological order unless you break them apart. Take, like we did tonight. The women were talked about buying their spices after a Sabbath day in one book, but in another book they were preparing them before a Sabbath day. So you can't do it by just putting Mark first and then read Luke and then read John, or that kind of. You have to take it piece by